Hi everybody, I thought I'd make a video today. The weather's not particularly nice outside and this camera needs a clean. A little better. Oh, the magnificent Q-tip. Anyway, yeah, it's not particularly nice out there, so I thought I'd make a video, and what prompted this video is basically confirmation bias, when you think about it, but other things. Now, when the Rona thing was at its height, a chap came up to me on the street and he said to me, "Oh, I love your videos. Thanks very much for them." The usual thing. And he said to me that he tried to show his brother, who was falling for all the government propaganda. And he said to me, "You have to check out this fella, and he has a lot of interesting stuff and important things to say." And he took a quick look at my video and he says, "Well, you can't trust that guy." And he goes, "Well, why not?" "Well, it's just a fella sitting in a car. It's not professionally done." Now, that statement speaks volumes, because his brother couldn't accept that unless a video had a slick production to it with jump cuts that, like, on important parts and strategic inzooms, then it's not credible, the information supplied in it. He couldn't grasp in his mind that because it's just a fella in a car, that's what makes it, viable. Now, this is a huge problem in both the alternative scene and in the mainstream, and it's being exacerbated by the bots on both sides. Don't think if you watch your truth videos and your conspiracy videos that the bots aren't feeding you what you want or what they want you to see on behalf of the secret unknowns. They absolutely are. This explains, like, if you look at the certain maxims, like people say, like, how come I only have 44,000 subscribers? I'm delighted with 44,000 subscribers. Well, if we put all the chance again, I got like over 100,000. But I'm delighted. I'd be delighted with 10,000 subscribers, 5,000. I'd be delighted with. I'm not about the numbers, but there's videos out there, in the alternative scene, and they get much, much, much higher numbers and subscribers. And the reason for that is they cater to a confirmation bias that exists. So we'll just talk about, like, say, in the truther scene, there's a certain confirmation biases that the establishment want people to look at. One of them, if you make videos about child trafficking and anything to do with that, you'll always be pushed to the top of the bots and the algorithms, either mainstream or alternative. You see that now at Tucker Carlson and stuff. I'm not saying this stuff doesn't exist, but I'm saying it's deliberately overemphasized because it's a highly emotive scenario. People quite rightly get very upset about the idea of children being trafficked to nonsense for that kind of thing. So they know a highly emotive issue will keep them watching a video, and the advertisers will be getting paid, and the person who owns the channel will continue to get paid. And so that's a maxim. Anything to do with child trafficking is a massive one. Now, I believe that although the child trafficking thing is real, I don't believe it's as big as what they say it is. I mean, other than what we do know, that there are, like, hundreds of thousands of children that are trafficked. We know that for a fact. But it's often, because it's an emotional thing, is used to distract from other things. Like, for instance, the Jeffrey Epstein case is not really about teenage girls. It's really about the tech bros and the eugenicists and the geneticists and the scientists who are hanging out with him, having these sort of, like, dystopian, fantasies of, like, wiping out the sheep and breeding them into robots. And that's actually worse than the child traffic, the teenage girl sex thing, because that's for everybody. That's basically genocide being planned on this island by people that you watch on TV and you think are respected characters. And so they want you looking at the Nazi stuff, the teenage girl stuff. They don't want you looking, and truthers, the TROOFERs, are absolutely intoxicated by non-stuff. It's like a drug to them, and many of them become sort of like Nazi by default because they spend so much time talking about it. They start sharing, like, made-up AI images of celebrities and little kids that are kiddie porn, and they sort of they get turned on by that. They think they busted them, and it's a very unhealthy thing to get in a road to go down. But the establishment wants it because they know that's a trap. They will be trapped into that world. It was the same thing that happened with the flat Earth stuff. Literally overnight and everywhere, the flat Earth exploded on the internet. And while there was lots of morons who fell for it, a lot of that was bot-driven or intelligence service types. It was to destroy and discredit everything said. Same with the Trinitarian stuff. It was designed to destroy and discredit every single, conspiracy from real conspiracy from MK Ultra to everything, the lot, and that's what his purpose was, and it sucked them all in. And you had the truth grifters all pushing it because it was like good money, and that's another thing. You have people. You see what I was saying at the beginning about the guy saying it's just a fella in his car. What I find remarkable is that you'll have people who will follow, who claim to be truthers, and they're suspicious of the man, and their favorite channel would be some guy who you don't know his name, you don't know his face, who's using a fake ID, and you don't know where he's from, who he is, or reading back basically the news to you. So a confirmation bias thing. They usually start off the videos by telling you the places you can send them money to, how you can give them money. But and I don't have a problem with them making money from that. But not if they're hiding their account and hiding their names. They could be anybody. But also, even if they're straight up and legit about it, they're cowards. Why should fuckers like me put my real name and identity on the line, only for truthers to make videos attacking me at the same time worshipping some fucker who's hiding behind a fake name and ID? This is how stupid truthers are. They're so stupid. Many of them would probably qualify for the intellectual disabilities because they don't even understand what they're even doing themselves. So you have that kind of element of it. Now, what's bringing this back into focus is the use of AI bots. Now, AI bots are being used to push all the crackpot conspiracy theory stuff that's easily debunked, while the genuine conspiracy stuff that we should be really looking at is ignored, or stuff that can never ever be really proven but sounds kind of sexy. Like, for instance, I have never ever seen one single iota of proof that MK Ultra was used on any one pop star in history. Not one. Now, I know about the Laurel Canyon stuff, and it is weird, but that's basically the music industry. Anyone who's in the music industry will tell you that if you're from the upper class, you have a much better chance of getting a record deal than if you're from the working class. There was a bit of a change during the punk rock years, but in general, if your parents were upper class establishment, you had a much that film with a famous scene in it. What was it called? The one about the kid running away with the rock band in America, Almost Famous or something like that. It was called, and they had a scene where the Rolling Stone, the kid is pretending to be an adult journalist, and the kid calls up the editor of the Rolling Stone, and the Rolling Stone says to him, "Your article was great. Where did you go to school? Cornell, Harvard, Berkeley? Come on, you must have went to Berkeley." Now, all Ivy League schools, and that tells you the music industry was about Ivy League schools. So, to say that they were picked because they were picked not because they were MK Ultra children of the establishment, they were picked because they were from the rich. It still goes on today. Didn't Coldplay go to the same school as, what you call them, Prince, the royal family's kids, Harry and William? This goes on and on. They're all from the establishment and the upper class. And that's always been how the music industry is. It's very difficult. It was during the punk rock years and maybe things like Motown for working class to get like a look in. Otherwise, it's basically a country club for the elite. That's basically what the music industry is, and it's returned back to that in big time. So, like, to say it's all MK Ultra, no, it's all the wealthy families, the Trustafarians. That's who it is. That's just the way the world works. If you come from money, you have much easier chance to get by in life. It's just how it is. And so they all think there's some kind of, now it is possible, and I do believe there are elements of this that were created. I don't believe the Beatles were actually manufactured or anything like that. I don't believe Paul McCartney was replaced or these are things you can't really prove. Well, you can prove the Beatles were not manufactured. They were a real band. I don't like them. I think the music is mostly shit, but that's my opinion. And So you see all these pop stars like Britney Spears is broken down because she's MK Ultra. No, Britney Spears broke down because she was basically a a stage kid who was basically had no life, like, and just run through the system and used. And having said that, I think Britney Spears, even though you see those videos, that then when she's dancing with the knives, that's not MK Ultra. That's just well, she still looks great. She can still dance great, and she's just having a laugh. You can see it. She smirks when she turns the camera. But they're all going, "Oh, our MK Ultra programming is breaking down." No, it's not. She's managed very well considering the kind of world that she's been put into and has to go through. And there's lots of examples of that. And so just like well, but people seek confirmation bias. Oh, the music industry is all MK Ultra, so I'm going to seek out videos that will confirm that for me. Oh, the Earth is flat. I'm going to, and these videos all get huge hits because they're always, if the bots want you looking at that. They don't want you. It's just they don't want you looking at real stuff. They wouldn't want, like, for instance, you never see anything about Kenneth Anger's Hollywood or Nashville Babylon's books or videos really on YouTube, and yet those books are they were like intense stuff long before we had the internet. And that's another, and again, it's just that's the real with real evidence, the things like, the Nashville Babylon one. He really tells you why, Jerry Lee Lewis was called the killer, literally. And the kind of, the Nashville, the gangsters and all the stuff involved in the music industry. And this, then you have the whole thing of the satanic stuff, like they were saying like that was a satanic funeral, for Ozzy Osbourne because his wife did this. Well, he did that on stage all the time. He used to do that all the time, and it was just going back. Uh, Black Sabbath were no more Satanist than Christopher Lee was Dracula. It was that was what made that music exciting. It was and stuff like that. It's the kind of cosplay element of it, the theatrical element. You had like Alice Cooper been doing it, and everyone, Peter Gabriel when he was in Genesis was doing it with the masks and everything. It's always gone on. It's part of the show, and I like bands that put on a show. I don't want to pay money to see fellas in flannel shorts and jeans singing about the drive-in on a Saturday night. And I want a show. I want lights, and I want the bands. If I'm paying that much money, I want a band to make an effort. So all that stuff goes on, and the bots are ruling everything now. They're so like. I'm even surprised I have this many things because I don't talk about what the bots want you to talk about. So, for instance, the newest one is now all the bots appearing on the internet in comment sections talking about. And all the same. I know loads of people. I know hundreds of people that have got the Jabberwocky and the needlecraft, and they're fine. That's a new one. That. If you had went at the height of the Rona, you went through like all the. This is Ireland has the highest rate of intelligence services and government AI bots of any country on earth. 71% at the last count. It's probably close to 99 now. So that's why when you went during the lockdowns to like sites like the journal.ie, which is an NGO posing as a news site. All those Irish ones like BO and all those ones, they're all NGOs pretending to be news sites or celebrity sites, and they push the government narrative. If anyone made a pro-lockdown comment or pro-government approach comment in the journal.ie, it went straight to the top of the thing because the bots can also hit the like button, the thumbs up button. It would go straight to the top of that instantaneously, and to make you believe that this guy is really popular, what he believes in defending the government is right, and I have to believe him too. Because what the average normie is like. They have to, especially the Irish, they have to get with the winning team. This is just how they are, and what they perceive the winning team, which nearly always is the losing team. But so really, only thing you can trust is someone giving an opinion and doesn't really like. I don't generally limit myself. The things that I don't talk about, I don't believe in. Simple as that. So I'll talk about something like the genetic experiments on Epstein. That was all the scientists and tech bros at Epstein Island planning to destroy us. I have no problem talking about that. And then I'll talk about magic and ancient sites. So it's very difficult for the AI to get a beat on me. It's also very difficult for the established, and also I'll do funny voices, and I'll do characters like Antoine Deco and Barry Drewmore, and this kind of thing. And that's also makes it very difficult to get a beat on me, because they like when you're deadly serious, that they love this, and they don't want that. My attitude is I'm talking to you the way I talk to you in a coffee shop or a pub. That's what I'm doing, and that's what I do. What you see is what you get. I'm just like this in real life. So because this is my real life, and I like, I'm not, my only thing is that I generally think I think I do have good information that I think people would be interested in. That's all it's about. Like, I'm not evangelical about anything. I'm not trying to convert anybody. I'm just saying, look, this is kind of interesting. You should check it out. You might like it. You might get something from it. You might expand your knowledge base. You might find new ways of thinking, or build new synapses in your brain, and improve your mental health as a whole. Because it's not generally, I don't doom it up. That's another one. Doomers, the whole doom thing. You see that, and you see like, and they'll use a lot of their thumbnails like redacted. I as soon as I see a thumbnail with like, or this kind of thing, I will never watch those videos, because that's like, that's just a marketing scam. That's all that is. And you see them all kinds of videos, like opera singer responds to Crazy Train by Ozzy Osbourne. That bullshit. Like, I need a fucking opera singer to tell me how to like rock music. This is people are, or else they love it when they have black guys going on about like they discovered Thin Lizzy. Yo, what's up, my man? We're now listening to a band I never heard before called Thin Lizzy. Man, let's check it out. And then all the comments are all full of like excitable white folks going, oh, if you like this, oh. And really what they're all saying is, we've been blessed by the Negro. That's really what they're saying. So they're kind of racist. They're so happy. Black people have approved of my music. I feel blessed. They're the types that, like, when they make friends with a bunch of black people, and the black people they get on great with them, and then it goes to their heads, and they start thinking they can use the N-word. Those types, and then they find out that they just think like, oh, I've been blessed. That bullshit. They're basically trying to manipulate black people. That's what they're doing, and black people will see right through it. So I have to laugh at those channels, the comment sections. A young black kid in Detroit, he loves my favorite Fleetwood Mac song. I'm so blessed. We've been blessed by whatever his name is, fucking MC Flute or fucking some shit like that. But you can find the stuff very entertaining. I find a lot of the truth stuff very entertaining, and that's so. I always try to like that. Tell people not to be necessarily positive, but don't be despondent all the time. Yes, when things are dark, they're dark, but don't live your life that way. But doom sells, unfortunately. Pessimism sells. Now, pessimism really sells among the left. Now, this is another thing I discovered as well. Mental health. If you want to go, there's one group where they're literally all mentally ill. It's the social justice warriors, Antifa, all those types. The people think they're trying to repair their mental illness by repairing the world in whatever way they can, whatever little cause they have or what group they have. They're trying to fix themselves. If the world is fixed, I'll be fixed. A lot of flat earthers are like that as well. If the earth turns out to be flat, then that means all the negative and bad the things in my life I regret that I've done didn't matter, because the earth wasn't round after all. There's a lot of this kind of compensation kind of thing going on. So you have a situation like, if you go to like some of the main Irish like message boards, like the ones that are generally run by civil servants goofing off, the moderators and stuff, and they're very heavily pro-establishment politics for the most part, and everything that isn't them is far right. Now, if you look at the most extreme left ones on those groups, all these groups also have mental health support in their kind of like self-help sections. It's all the biggest lefties and the biggest wokies and social justice warriors are also heavily involved in the forums to do with mental health. And some of them, you come away thinking, these people are seriously very unwell. You think you'll have discussions about, difficulty they might have had with SSRIs, the usual Xanax and Prozac and all those, Effexor and all those things. But some of them are on like really powerful medications like Thorazine and lithium. And there's some of them will openly say that they spend time in this and that mental health clinic, and yet they're all over other pages calling everyone a Nazi or a far right fascist. And these people are very unwell. And lots of suicidal talk. A lot of them do commit suicide, but lots of suicidal talk, because it's the same reason there's a huge high rate of suicides among communists. It's because communists, like, literally, if you become a communist, you're either going to die in a gulag or you're going to die by your own hands. It's literally like that. They literally will they'll either commit suicide or they'll be killed by one of their own if the revolution happens. It happens where they live. But they're very unwell people, and that's why you just see them. You just look. You can just tell there's something not right with them. There's something not right with them. They can see that they're desperately unhappy. And I'm not judging the way they dress or anything, like their own business. I don't care how people dress or dye their hair. That's their own business. But you can see there's a look in their faces. There's a look in their faces that's like you can see the deep sadness, the deep pain. Do I feel sorry for them? No, because they're not working their way out of it. They're trying to fix the rest of us to cure themselves. So they've got a kind of a Frankenstein thing going on. So the bots do that as well. The bots push all that stuff. It's business to have people shouting and rowing with each other. It's good business. It's a good business model because it generates ad revenue and all this generates traffic and this kind of thing. So, there's a lot to be said for frugality on the internet. Generally, the channels I like are just fellas or women like me who just, they might have a bit more better production, but it won't be much, and it won't be done OTT. And I make sure they're using their real name and identity. I won't follow anyone hiding behind a fake name and identity. And unless I personally meet them and know them, and then I see this is a decent person. That's happened to me over the years at conferences. I'd be like wary of someone because they didn't have to use their real name online. And then I'd meet them and say, well, he has a wife and 2 young kids, and he's trying to protect his kids. And I'd say, well, that's fair enough. And I can tell by talking to the man or the woman that they're a sincere person in what they say. I have no problem with that, but but otherwise, unless I meet them personally, and and a big red flag is them instantly starting their videos telling you how you can pay them for reading the news that is on a page in front of you. That's another thing. A huge section of the whole truth thing is fellas just reading the news. That's all. So you're basically paying someone to read you what's on the webpage that you can read yourself. And yet these channels get huge hits. And they don't really editorialize or anything. They just read what's on the news. And there's a lot of regurgitation of original sort of like heritage conspiracy from the 1960s and 70s. There's a whole string of people. I saw one the other day with John Waters, and John was making his usual very good points, and this guy kept interrupting him. He was also on the show. I don't know, he's an American dude. And basically all he was saying was the usual 25-year-old conspiracy guff, that we've all heard 1 billion times over, and saying in such a way that he has special knowledge that we don't. And that brings us to another one, special knowledge. This notion of how these types have special knowledge. Like the way born-again Christians are like, I'm going to heaven and you're not. They're like that, well, I know about these things, these secrets that you don't. You and a million fucking others know about it. And 99 times it's bullshit what you think you know. And you get a lot of that too. That's sort of an exaggeration of the evil. And this is why the truth movement, I have almost nothing to do with it. It's full of so many idiots. It's full of so many idiots who check nothing. They get their dopamine rush by hearing some bullshitter say that, something about it, something about something is, and they get a dopamine rush from it. Wow. And then without even checking to see either sources, if this is right or this is wrong, they just believe it, They just believe it. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And then they call themselves truthers. No, no, they're confirmation biasers. That's what they are. Confirmation biasers. Now, I think that there's, you say there's an element of truth to all conspiracies. That's actually true. There is. If you look at the Beatles, okay, they weren't MK Ultra, but you can see how they were heavily massaged by the culture of the time, which we know is basically the entire culture, the entire hippie culture, which goes back to Berkeley, CIA dropping, you know, acid tabs into Berkeley, throwing them over the fence. And so, even though the CIA didn't sit down and program the Beatles, they moved themselves into a culture, the hippie culture, that was basically designed. Well, you all know what a hippie culture was invented. Here's a real conspiracy for you. When nuclear proliferation came to be about a big deal in the 50s, especially after the Russians detonated the hydrogen bomb, and also the concept of MAD, mutually assured destruction, that if the both sides and all the sides in the Cold War would just destroy themselves if the war started. The campaign for nuclear disarmament, CND, took off, and it was very, very successful in all around Europe. And it was made up of normal fellas and women, families, everything. And it was spreading to the United States. And so they had to take a very rational mainstream anti-nuclear proliferation movement that was really doing very, very well. And what they did was they basically gave you the hippies and flower power instead. So yeah, so that was all invented basically to neuter any genuine, counter military industrialization, anti movement. And so the Beatles became hippies through the Sergeant Pepper's thing because they sort of adapted culturally to it. But no CIA handler was sitting down telling John Lennon and Paul McCartney, do this, do that. They just went, that wasn't happening. They were just they merged into it. And if you look at the Beatles' music, the best music they made was right before they became hippies. Rubber Soul and the one that has Taxman on it, the one Revolver. The two mod albums basically, and Help. Those three albums are their best albums, best songs on them, and they're tight. But then the hippie stuff came in, and the stupid clothes and all that stuff, and going to India and all that other bullshit. That was all, a combination of drugs and culturally trying to stay relevant within this kind of like hippie bullshit thing, which was complete bullshit. It was just designed to take the edge off. Anything that has an edge to it will, among the masses, will be neutered or black broken. Like for instance, the soccer hooliganism. That was if they still had soccer hooliganism in England now, like they had in the 70s and 80s, they wouldn't have the problem with the Pakistani grooming gangs because they would have been the natural army to protect the working class. But of course, they used everything they could to, put seats in stadiums and made the game very expensive to go to and made it very TV focused. So it was like you could sit at home and they took the tribal gang element out of it, and the firms and all that stuff. And you have like the ultras and all that stuff today, but they don't. I mean, there was actually an old fashioned soccer riot here in Ireland recently last week between Bohemians and Derry City outside the stadium, and it was the real thing. They were firing rockets and everything, and concrete blocks at one another, and people were going disgraceful, disgraceful. And I was like, and it was funny at Bohemians of all fucking clubs, and I was like, it's good to see young males who are still up for a bit of argy bargy because you might need them one day. To protect your community. So I was kind of like, oh, that was a positive thing. I thought once people are not involved directly, have their property damaged or are injured, that's okay. That's bad, but it's okay if they just they have a punch up among themselves and fire rockets at each other. So the videos are very just unbelievable. Like the Derry guys building rocket launchers out of fireworks and just spraying the bows fellas coming at them with concrete blocks, and it was like, yeah, it's good to see young men have a bit of testosterone and a bit of fight in them. So I don't have a problem with that once they do it among themselves. And people say, "Oh, that's disgraceful behaviour." If we had that disgraceful behaviour in Britain, you wouldn't have the Pakistani grooming gangs. It's as simple as that. You know, you know, everything comes with a price to pay. Everything. So I've been all over the place today, but what I'm really saying is that instead of seeking confirmation bias, and I think most of the people in the tribe are like this, uh, it's much healthier to allow yourself to be challenged. So that's why I like the classic one. I'm hated in the alternative scene because I said the moon landings happened. Now, it was for years I was skeptical about it, but then I did a really deep dive into the science and everything of it and the proof from multiple sources. Like the way the flat earthers think that the only source for space is NASA. Like Copernicus worked for NASA, or Galileo worked for NASA. They're so fucking stupid. They never a straight answer. And then they have a quote by Tycho Behe in fucking 1600s Denmark. But like I look at both sides. I used to think Tesla was amazing until I discovered that he was really an asshole in many ways and a eugenicist. And he didn't die in poverty because he took on the man. He died in poverty because he was living in the fucking patent office every day, patenting everything he made because he was greedy. And then all the truthers go, New Agers go, he suffered because he wanted to give the world free electricity. Yeah, 100G. There's half the reason was going to be fucking deadly. Yeah, it's okay for powering a few lights around the place, but you're not going to be able to send out that kind of power to do electric trains and things like that. It would be like you'd be nostalgic for 5G. So so you look at things from all sides. So there's black and white to everything, and then you find that grows at me. Then you're like, when you hear something that's too good to be true at first, like you look at shows, channels, like there's so much dopamine rushing, dopamine pimps, like that redacted channel. But I don't mind the guy Clayton so much. He's actually quite a good presenter. His wife does my head in. She's so stupid. She, like when you were saying, there was the thing, Scotland is looking for its independence. Will the Irish be next? He doesn't even know that Ireland is an independent country. And she was talking like over there in the kingdom, in the United Kingdom in Dublin. Like she's so fucking stupid. And yes, she's supposed to be an alternative to dingbats on the mainstream, and she knows nothing. And he's all right. She seems like a nice lady and everything, but she's definitely not educated enough to be hosting a show. But everything is clickbait. The World War III is about to happen next week. You ever notice that? Everything is doom, but it never happens. And that kind of thing, it never happens. And but it gives people a dopamine rush when they see the thumbnail or the thumbnail like that. Oh, dopamine rush! I have to go see that. The world's going to fucking end soon. And I think about the asteroid. It's a very interesting one. Excuse me. This fucking Atlas thing. That man, your man Loeb, everything is a bleeding alien spaceship with him. Although, Anuma Uma probably was. Now, they're claiming this thing Atlas is on a direct collision course, whatever that means, with Earth in 2027. Now, that's an interesting one. One of the sort of most outlandish conspiracy theories that I've always had a soft spot for, and you've heard me say this over the years, is Project Bluebeam. Although it won't be called Project Bluebeam, but I've always said, like, when they have the technology right, and they do have it now with drones and AI and robots and holograms, they would change the very nature of existence. Not necessarily an alien invasion, but a phony war. Like in Orwell's 1984, the rocket bombs were fired into the Proli districts by, by their own countries. They would bomb their own people and then tell them that the other side did it. That actually happened in real life in World War II. Churchill basically murdered everyone in the working class in the East End of London in order to create this horror of the Blitz. The Blitz only lasted a certain time, and the Germans attacked industrial areas, ports and stuff like that. Now, what happened was they had obsolete battleships from the Admiralty, and because he was at one time the head of the Admiralty, responsible for one of the greatest war crimes in the Royal Navy when he sacrificed 5,000 seamen to Turkish guns in the Dardanelles just to get new ships. he knew about he got these guns, and he had taken these heavy artillery ship guns, battle guns from cruisers and battleships, and put them around London, and in a certain direction. They were told that they were to knock these German bombers out of the sky, but they couldn't. I mean, the chances of one of those shells hitting a bomber and taking it down is almost nothing, unless they have very good proximity shells. But no, the guns were arranged in such a way, deliberately by Churchill and the cabinet, the war cabinet. So the shells went up, they missed the German bombers, and then they came down in places like the East End. And the locals knew it. When Churchill couldn't go into the East End because the locals knew it. And the people who lived through the war will tell you that the German bombers didn't kill people. It was the shells coming down from the artillery guns mounted in places like Muswell Hill and Greenwich and outside the city, in the Ealing Forest and stuff like that. And that's what killed most of but it served a terror campaign. So you're always subject to a terror campaign. So the Project Bluebeam thing would be someone like Churchill, an absolute monster. When I hear what you call it, and it's not because I'm Irish or anything like that, when I hear what you call it, Tucker Carlson and Trump going on about him, he's a fucking monster, Churchill. And the guy invented a concentration camp for civilians, and as a way of destroying the enemy by killing their women and children in a concentration camp, the Boers in South Africa. And he would use this thing, as this kind of Project Bluebeam thing. Now, it's 2027, and what makes that date interesting is that the sites that I've been following of the virologist and the people who know about the dangers of the proper scientists that were censored, who know about the dangers of the needlecraft, said that it would take 5 years for the ping pong to fully nest itself below the blood-brain barrier of the brain, and it will start killing people because the nervous systems will start failing. So what we're seeing now, a friend of mine described it yesterday, is we're just getting off the off-ramp we're on the off-ramp now onto the motorway. No, we're not on the motorway yet. We'll get on the motorway in 2027. 2027 is the year when the year of the transubstantiation wipeout. And it just so ties in that they're telling us a bullshit story that an alien spaceship is arriving in 2027. Now, what better way to distract the normies and the NPCs from the fact that they're all dying, other than blaming it on imaginary aliens? So that's that's my outlandish theory, and I could be completely wrong. And I can tell you this without doing jump cuts and having doom music and all, and this kind of thing in the thumbnail. But that's. But I could be wrong about that. It could be some asteroid that's coming. Remember during the Rowan Chronicles, I kept saying, "Is an asteroid coming? Is something happening?" Like that. It's a cover. See, to me, the way I see it is everything is a cover story for everything else. Everything from the mainstream all of it is a cover story for what the secret unknown plans are. So it's like John Waters said this, the maxims are they're always lying and they want to kill you. And that's just a fact of it, okay? So they're always lying and they want to kill you. And so like you switch on the evening news and they will tell you a story, and yes, it is true. This terrorist event happened. This thing happened. But this is a cover story for something else that they either want to play down or they want to slip in, like, the way a carrier wave works in radio broadcast. You have a carrier wave and the signal is inside the carrier wave. So they send you the carrier wave and the signal, the real thing is inside the signal, inside the carrier wave. So confirmation bias is not your friend. Looking at what sources from one side only is not your friend. And comment sections, you will know the tribes by the way they talk and the way they behave. And literally the only thing you can trust is what you see with your own eyes and exists in real life. So, people know I'm real. I'm not an AI thing. and also that you've met them and you looked into their eyes and said, that's a nice person, or that's a cool person, or, oh, I don't particularly like him, but he's sincere in what he's saying. And that's the end of it. That's the end of it. But you have to keep looking at multiple two sources, the mainstream, and then your confirmation bias. You start building new synapses in your brain, and you're less confirmation bias, and you're more. You don't make a fool of yourself. It's like all the ones who were like 5 years ago who weren't bots, who were thought the Earth was flat. They're not talking about it now. They're like the normies with the Rona and the TikTok dancer. I won't talk about that now. No, whatever. Because they realised the dopamine and confirmation bias led them into a trap. So that's it. That's basically it. So we have to be very wary more than ever now, particularly in Ireland, about these bots. These bots on the internet. And generally, someone who's counter the narrative is a real person. Is a real person. It's as simple as that. And if they're counter the narrative and in the most pushing the most batshit crazy stuff, that is easily debunked. They're part of the narrative because it's like Epstein Island. It's a distraction from something else. It's all the world's a stage. And the best way to enjoy it is not to be terrified when the circus comes to town, but take a front row seat and thank the gods that you have the faculties to see through it. And there is no cowboy coming in at the end of the day. There is no. You'll get a fleeting enjoyment like Sydney Sweeney's tits infuriating the woke, which was fun, but it's not an answer to any great problem. Trump getting elected, it was at the time it was needed, but again, it's not a great answer, and it provides entertainment of looking at the woke melting down. But it's not, the secret unknowns are still secret unknowns, and so don't. I mean, I thought it was very healthy when MAGA turned on Trump over the Epstein thing. That showed a very healthy thing. That that was the libertarian. I can't stand conservatives or I can't stand the left, but I have a soft spot for libertarians and anarchists, and that showed that the libertarian factions that weren't right wing types or weren't conservatives were like, no, I'm still a libertarian. You're not going to get away with this. So and the libertarian is a good viewpoint to have in the middle, looking at both sides. Although most people call themselves libertarians, they're actually right wing, and most people who call themselves anarchists are mostly hardcore Bolsheviks. So you have to literally at the end of the day, use your ass and use your mind, and your ass will follow. Take care.